How to build unshakable confidence. Stoic secrets for inner strength. The inner court, replacing the crowd with a judge. There's a reason your confidence crumbles the moment people enter the room. You walk in fine, shoulders steady, breath even. But then, eyes land on you. Expectations rise. You start scanning for approval, measuring reactions, adjusting words to avoid judgment. And suddenly, you're no longer acting from the inside out. You're performing. This is the death of inner strength. Because the moment you let the crowd become your jury, you lose your sovereignty. Your worth becomes a vote. And the votes change, room by room, day by day. You never really know who you are, because you're too busy asking others to tell you. That's where the Stoics introduced something radical, the inner court. Imagine for a second that inside you, there's a private room. No noise, no crowd, just one chair, and in that chair sits your judge, not your critic, not your parent, not your boss, your reason. The calm, clear part of you that sees things as they are, not through fear, not through ego, but through clarity. Now ask, have I built that room? Have I installed that chair? Or do I still let the mob run my identity? Marcus Aurelius wrote his meditations not for applause, not to publish, but as a daily conversation with this internal judge, a way to test himself, to check his motives, to measure his courage, not by outcome, but by alignment with principle. He didn't ask, will they approve? He asked, did I act in accordance with nature, with reason, with what I know to be true? You cannot build confidence if you're still trying to be someone in every room. At some point, you have to decide, I will be one person, solid, honest, measured, regardless of who's watching. The goal is not to please everyone. The goal is to stop needing to. But here's the practice, the work. You must build the room. You must define the judge. And you must enter that chamber daily, even if for 2 minutes. Start small. At the beginning of your day, ask this: what action today would earn the approval of my inner court? What would make me proud even if no one sees it? Even if no one praises it? Even if it costs me comfort or applause? Then do it. Quietly, deliberately, without announcement. And at night, return. Enter the chamber again. Sit in silence. Ask, where did I posture? Where did I move from fear instead of clarity? What did I avoid because I feared losing their approval? No self-punishment, just honesty, just recalibration. The point is not perfection. The point is alignment. Confidence comes from congruence. When your outer actions match your inner standard, there's no fracture, no shame, no need to defend or exaggerate. You become clear, predictable to yourself. You begin to trust your own spine. The world will always offer you judges, noisy ones, algorithms, opinions, trends. You don't need to fight them. You just need to make sure they don't enter your chamber. Because once you install your judge, you'll feel something strange. A quiet strength growing in the background. You'll stop flinching when misunderstood. You'll stop bending to please. You'll stop explaining yourself to people who haven't earned access to your truth. This is the beginning of unshakable confidence, when your actions answer only to a standard you respect, and when that standard lives inside you, not outside. So build the chamber, choose the judge, enter it often, because a person who no longer seeks permission, no longer fears rejection. And from that soil, confidence grows like a tree that no longer bends to every wind. It just stands. The ledger of kept promises, how integrity builds confidence. You don't trust people who break their word. So why do you expect to trust yourself if you keep breaking promises to you? That's the question most people never ask. They think confidence is some kind of mood, that it's about feeling good, walking tall, saying the right things in the mirror. But the truth is quieter, simpler, and far more brutal. Confidence is built every time you keep a promise to yourself, and destroyed every time you don't. The Stoics understood this not as motivation, but as law. Seneca said, "What progress have I made? I have begun to be a friend to myself." That's not sentimental, that's structural. You cannot be confident if the foundation of your identity is built on broken oaths. Look back. How many times have you said, "I'll start Monday"? How many times have you said, "This time will be different," and how many times did you betray that sentence within 48 hours? Every time you do, you train your nervous system to expect inconsistency. And the brain learns. It learns that your words don't mean anything, that your commitments are wishes dressed as plans. No wonder your voice shakes when you speak. No wonder your decisions feel like guesses. You don't trust yourself because you've taught yourself not to. Now here's the solution, not a trick, not a quick fix, but a system that rebuilds the bridge between what you say and what you do. It's called the ledger of kept promises. Start here. Make fewer promises, tiny ones, so small they almost feel laughable. One push-up, one glass of water, one paragraph written, one walk around the block. You're not doing this to change your life overnight. You're doing this to build a new reputation with yourself. Track them, physically. Pen and paper, a small notebook, a sheet taped to your wall. Doesn't matter. What matters is visibility, because what gets tracked gets reinforced. Each day, you mark a check, not for perfection, but for consistency. Every 7 days, audit. Ask, am I keeping these? Do I need to simplify more? Can I increase intensity without losing reliability? You're not chasing volume. You're training identity. That's the difference. Most people set goals to escape who they are. You're building habits to prove who you've become. When you do this, strange things begin to happen. You stop negotiating with your own voice. You stop delaying the first step. You stop crumbling when plans change. Because deep down, your body remembers, I am someone who keeps their word, even when it's hard, even when it's quiet. Especially then. This ledger becomes a map of identity, not just what you've done, but who you've become in the process. And it's permanent. No one can take it from you. No algorithm, no comment, no rejection can erase the memory of effort. This is how the Stoics trained their will, not in grand gestures, but in daily disciplines. Epictetus didn't say, "Be perfect." He said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." That's it. Define, act, record, repeat. Confidence isn't about believing you can. It's about remembering you have, over and over. Day after day, until the voice inside you stops doubting and starts declaring, "This is who I am now." And when that voice gets loud enough, nothing outside you can silence it. So write the oath. Make it small. Keep it daily. Track it visibly. Protect it like a sacred contract. Because each checkmark is a brick, and each brick builds a structure. And one day, without warning, you'll look back and realize you don't have to pretend anymore. You are the thing you used to wish for. That's not ego. That's earned. That's the confidence no one can give you and no one can take, because it wasn't spoken. It was proven. The anti-brag protocol, power in silence, not preview. You say you want confidence, but you keep previewing your moves. You announce goals. You post your plans. You share ideas before they're born. And every time you do, a little part of the power leaks out. Not because you're weak, but because you're addicted to early validation. It's a trap. One the Stoics warned against without hashtags or metaphors. A trap where the applause comes before the effort. The illusion of progress replaces the need to act, and suddenly you feel proud of what you haven't even done yet. Stop previewing. Start proving. This is the anti-brag protocol, and it begins with a single rule. Don't say it, show it. Not because silence is cool, because silence is strategic. It protects momentum, it starves the ego, and it forces you to shift from performance to production. Seneca wrote, "The reward of a thing well done is to have done it." That's a man who understood this protocol centuries before it had a name. He didn't need to declare what he was working on. His results spoke in his place, quietly, permanently. Here's the truth nobody likes to admit. Most people talk about what they'll do because they're not sure they'll actually do it. So they say it out loud, hoping the reaction will give them just enough energy to begin. But it doesn't. It feeds the ego and starves the will. Think of confidence like pressure. When you bottle it, it builds. When you release it too early, it vanishes. Every time you talk about what you're going to do, The book you'll write, the change you'll make, the path you'll finally take. You give your brain a premature dopamine reward. It confuses talk with action, intention with execution. You feel better without getting better. You're proud, but nothing's been built. Now shift. From this moment on, adopt a new sentence, one that replaces bragging with clarity. When someone asks what you're working on, say this: "You'll see when it's ready." Let the silence carry the weight. Let the results speak for you. That's real power, that's control. There's something magnetic about a person who doesn't explain themselves, who doesn't need to be understood mid-process, who isn't hunting applause in the early stages of their transformation. Because they know the only opinion that matters is the one earned through proof. This isn't about secrecy, it's about energy. Your confidence grows when your actions are guarded, not exposed. When your progress is real, not rehearsed. When your mission is lived, not advertised. Build in silence, move without preview. Announce only when arrival is undeniable. When you keep your goals to yourself, you start working for reasons that don't need to be seen. You stop tying your pace to the reaction of others. You stop living in the mirror and start living in movement, quietly, brutally, unstoppably. And then, when the results appear, they land harder. Not because they surprise others, but because they confirm what you already knew, that you were always becoming. And you didn't need anyone to clap while you did. Confidence that brags is insecure. Confidence that proves is immovable. So here's your practice. Go 1 month without talking about what you're building. No previews, no motivational updates, no soft announcements. Just effort, just results. You'll feel strange at first, like something's missing. That's not a sign of failure. That's your ego detoxing from the addiction to being seen. Let it pass, then double down. Not on your words, but on your work. Because the moment you stop needing to prove it before it's done, is the moment you start becoming the kind of person who doesn't have to say anything at all. Friction training, rebuilding strength through voluntary discomfort. You've been trained to avoid friction. Everything around you is built to make life smoother, faster, easier. Your food arrives with a swipe. Your opinions are confirmed with a scroll. You don't even need to get up to feel productive anymore. And that's the problem. Because confidence doesn't grow in ease. It grows in tension, in resistance, in the slow, deliberate act of moving through what's uncomfortable and doing it anyway. The Stoics weren't obsessed with pain. They were obsessed with clarity. And they knew one truth we try to forget: that the person who avoids friction becomes soft, fragile, uncertain. Not because they're weak by nature, but because they've never tested their edge. Marcus Aurelius chose discomfort not because he liked to suffer, but because he wanted to remember who he was without the distractions. Seneca slept on hard beds. Epictetus, born a slave, taught that your power begins where your excuses end. Now ask yourself, when was the last time you chose discomfort on purpose? Not the kind you couldn't avoid, the kind you could have, but didn't. The kind that reveals how much your actions are still controlled by convenience. Because when you're always seeking comfort, you stop seeking growth. You stop pushing your threshold. And slowly, your confidence rusts. Friction training is the reversal of that decay. It's not punishment. It's not masochism. It's a reset, a recalibration of your nervous system to remind you, pain is not an emergency, effort is not danger, and challenge is not a reason to retreat. Start with small doses. Pick 1 discomfort per day, a cold finish to your shower, a longer silence before responding, walking instead of driving, holding the stare in the mirror when your excuses rise. Each act is a message to yourself. I can do hard things without running. Rotate the discomforts, not to shock your system, but to train it. Just like lifting weight, the stimulus must evolve, but it must be precise. Too much friction too fast and you quit. Too little and nothing changes. The art is in the tension. And here's the shift. Don't just endure the discomfort. Observe your mind inside it. Watch the dialogue that begins when things get hard. The voice that says, "This is too much." The one that whines, negotiates, bargains. That's the part of you that never matured. The part that still believes comfort equals safety. Challenge it. Quietly, like a soldier cleaning his weapon in the dark. No theatrics, just precision. Confidence comes when your identity expands to include resistance. When you no longer flinch at pressure. When you stop being surprised by challenge because you've trained for it. Daily, intentionally, with no applause. That's what friction does. It teaches you that pain is not the enemy. Unreadiness is. And when you begin to seek out the edge instead of avoiding it, your capacity multiplies. You walk differently. You speak without the need to dominate. You move through difficulty like a man who's seen worse and chose it anyway. That's the essence of Stoic strength. To walk toward the discomfort you once ran from. Not because it's enjoyable, but because it's yours. So choose your friction. Keep it small, keep it daily. Rotate it like a discipline. And when the real storms come, when the world throws you into difficulty you didn't choose, you'll realize something quietly powerful. You've already been here, and you're not afraid. O exercício das duas colunas, dominando. A diferença entre ação e narrativa. Escrito no mesmo estilo direto e profundo. 4.500 caracteres. Narrativa fluida, sem quebras. Clareza estoica, aplicabilidade prática e força interior no centro de tudo. A maioria das pessoas não sabe por que falha. Elas dizem que foi azar, que foi a opinião dos outros, que faltou apoio, tempo, energia. Mas se você parar para olhar de perto, quase sempre a falha veio de um lugar só. Da confusão entre o que era controle e o que era narrativa. Você estava no meio de uma decisão importante. Um projeto, uma conversa difícil, uma exposição pública. E antes mesmo de agir, sua mente já estava ocupada com pensamentos que não servem a nada. E se der errado? O que eles vão pensar? Será que vão me julgar? E se eu parecer ridículo? Você não falhou na ação. Você falhou na atenção. Porque permitiu que a narrativa tomasse o lugar da execução. Os estoicos sabiam disso como quem sabia respirar. Para eles, o primeiro passo para dominar qualquer situação era separar o que está no seu poder daquilo que não está. Epicteto dizia: algumas coisas dependem de nós, outras não. Parece simples, mas exige uma prática diária que poucos fazem. Aqui está como você começa. O exercício das duas colunas. Pegue uma folha de papel. Divida ao meio. Na coluna da esquerda, escreva apenas aquilo que está no seu controle. Use verbos, sempre verbos, porque confiança vive na ação. Preparar, revisar, perguntar, escrever, estudar, agir, respirar, recomeçar. Na coluna da direita, escreva todas as narrativas mentais que costumam te sabotar. Eles vão rir. Não sou bom o suficiente. Vão achar estranho. E se não gostarem? Já é tarde demais. Não sou como eles. Nunca fiz isso antes. Agora, antes de cada situação importante, revise a coluna da esquerda. É isso que importa. Só isso. Esse é o seu campo de batalha. Tudo o que está à direita deve ser tratado como ruído. Você não discute com ele. Você não tenta vencê-lo, você apenas ignora. E depois, ao final do dia, faça uma revisão estoica. Retorne à folha. Pergunte a si mesmo, hoje, onde agi com base na ação? E onde fui governado pela narrativa? Você não precisa vencer todas. Precisa apenas diminuir o espaço da direita e aumentar o da esquerda. Esse exercício muda tudo, porque você para de reagir ao mundo com base em fantasmas. Você começa a mover-se com base no que pode ser feito, não no que pode ser temido. E quanto mais você age dentro da coluna da esquerda, mais sua confiança cresce. Porque o corpo aprende. Ele entende que você está operando com clareza. E quando a mente está clara, o medo perde o poder. Você começa a falar com firmeza, a agir com precisão, a corrigir com humildade, porque tudo está sendo medido dentro de um sistema confiável. Ação real, não ilusão mental. As narrativas vão tentar voltar. Elas sempre voltam. Mas agora você as reconhece. Você as nomeia. Você as isola. E mais importante, você não age com base nelas. O mundo externo continuará sendo instável. O que muda é a sua forma de andar dentro dele. E quando tudo ao seu redor parecer fora de controle, você volta à folha. 2 colunas, verbos de um lado, medos do outro, e aí você escolhe. A confiança não nasce da certeza de que tudo vai dar certo. Ela nasce da clareza de saber onde pisar, mesmo quando tudo parece turvo. Coluna da esquerda. Todo dia. Toda decisão. É assim que se constrói um homem inabalável. The Red Team Mind, the stoic practice of challenging your own ego. Most people don't notice their ego until it's already made the decision for them. It doesn't shout, it whispers, and what it says is dangerous. You're right. You're better than them. You already know enough. You don't need to listen. This kind of voice feels good, which is exactly why it's deadly. The ego doesn't prepare you for the world. It shields you from it. It creates an image, polished, confident, sure. But the image is fragile. Because the moment life pushes back, when someone questions you, outperforms you, contradicts your view, the image cracks. And beneath it you find no structure, just noise. The Stoics saw ego not as noise, but as illusion, a mask that weak men wear to avoid the work of self-honesty. And that's why they trained something most people never even consider: the ability to challenge themselves before the world does. They called it examination. We call it the Red Team Mind. It's the inner voice you train to oppose your first thought, not to destroy you, but to save you from arrogance, from delusion, from collapse. Here's the core idea. Every time a strong belief forms, you introduce a counter voice. A mental opponent whose job is to test the integrity of that belief before it leaves your mouth or guides your hand. It asks 3 questions. What would prove me wrong? Where am I exaggerating my certainty? What cost am I hiding from myself? These aren't just prompts, they're drills. They force you to pause before acting from impulse. They strip the ego of its camouflage. They create mental distance between desire and execution. And in that space, confidence begins to mature. Because real confidence isn't built on never being wrong. It's built on being unafraid to check. Seneca wrote that he reviewed every day at night, not to punish himself, but to understand his missteps before they hardened into habits. Marcus Aurelius wrote as if arguing with his own mind, refining his beliefs with each page. These men didn't trust themselves blindly. They tested their character as rigorously as they tested the world. Modern men avoid this. They confuse confidence with certainty. But certainty that's never been tested is just ego in disguise. So you build the Red Team Mind. Every week, take one belief, one assumption, one plan, and submit it to challenge. Ask yourself, what if I'm wrong about this? What would the consequences be? Who around me might see what I'm still refusing to admit? This isn't self-doubt, it's self-defense. You are defending your future from the blind spots of your present. And slowly, something changes. You stop fearing criticism. You stop needing to be right in every room. You stop overreacting to feedback because you already ran the interrogation yourself. You've already heard worse from your own inner court. This isn't easy. It requires ego death on a micro level over and over. But what you get in return is something most people never touch. A mind that trusts itself because it has been refined through honest opposition. Your opinions get sharper. Your decisions get calmer. Your presence becomes quieter but heavier. You don't need to prove anything because your truth has already passed through fire. And when the world finally challenges you, you'll welcome it. Not because you enjoy conflict, but because you've already faced the real opponent, yourself. The Uncertainty Ladder, training confidence through controlled chaos. Written with clarity, psychological pacing, and rooted in Stoic philosophy. 4,500 characters. For narration, no subtitles, no noise, just presence and precision. You think confidence comes from being ready, from preparation, from control. But there's a truth no one tells you. Real confidence is built in uncertainty. And if you're always waiting to feel safe before you act, you'll never move. Because safety isn't the source of courage. Uncertainty is. The Stoics didn't pursue comfort. They didn't wait for perfect conditions. They trained for chaos, not with drama, but with method. They practiced the art of living well even when outcomes were unclear. And you can do the same. You do it through what I call the uncertainty ladder. Here's how it works. You make a list, a simple one, 10 levels. Each level is a situation that contains some degree of unpredictability. The lower rungs are mildly uncomfortable. The upper rungs, they expose your pulse. Let's say the first rung is speaking up in a meeting. Second, posting something personal without polishing it. Third, asking a difficult question without knowing the reaction. Fourth, sharing your real opinion publicly. Fifth, going somewhere alone where you'd normally need company, and so on. What matters isn't the list, it's the structure. You are calibrating your nervous system to tolerate disorder, intentionally, strategically, without panic, because the problem isn't uncertainty itself, it's how unfamiliar it feels. When you avoid what's uncertain, you feed a subtle fear, that you can only move when the map is clear. That confidence is about having all the answers, but it's not. It's about knowing how to walk without them. The Stoics prepared not just for action, but for setbacks, for missed goals, for rejection, for loss. That preparation wasn't morbid, it was liberation. Because the man who has faced uncertainty in controlled doses becomes resilient when life throws him into the fire. You don't break, you breathe. Now here's your practice. Each week, climb one rung, just one. You don't jump to the top, you earn it, by taking small, uncomfortable actions that stretch your threshold without snapping it. When your pulse rises, don't run. Stay. Let your body feel what you've always avoided. Let the mind learn. I am capable inside uncertainty. No scripts, no guarantees, just your will. At the end of the week, reflect. What did you fear? What actually happened? What did you learn about your mind when control was removed? You'll start to see something shift. Not instantly, but slowly, like steel hardening. You stop flinching when plans fall apart. You stop freezing when someone challenges you. You begin to act, and even when the outcome is unclear. And that's the moment confidence becomes real, because it's no longer conditional. It's no longer borrowed from external signals. It's built, one rung at a time. Don't chase the absence of fear. That's a myth. Chase the capacity to move with it, to act anyway, to take the next step, not because you know what comes after, but because you trust yourself to respond when it does. That's Stoic confidence, not perfect planning, responsive strength. Train it, week by week, rung by rung, and you'll become someone the world can't shake, not because you predicted everything, but because nothing surprises you anymore. You already practiced for this. The Ego Fast, detoxing from praise to restore inner strength, delivered with directness, emotional weight, and Stoic discipline. 4,500 characters. Narration ready. Quiet power only. You don't notice how addicted you are to being seen until you stop being seen. That's the truth behind most people's anxiety. Not fear of failure, but fear of being invisible. You tell yourself you're confident, that you don't need validation. But look closer. Every win is posted. Every project needs acknowledgement. Every small improvement has to be shared. And if no one responds, something inside you sinks. That's not confidence, that's dependency. And the Stoics would call it by its name, enslavement to opinion. You're not free. You just perform well enough to earn attention. But the moment the attention fades, so does your identity. There's a solution. It's not glamorous, but it's surgical. It's called the Ego Fast. 7 days. No humble brags, no self-promotion. No hinting, no previewing, no indirect applause-seeking. You speak about your process, not your progress. You work in silence. You practice presence without needing eyes on you. It'll feel strange. You'll want to post something smart, something meaningful. You'll want to let people know you're doing well, but you won't. And that silence will show you just how loud your ego had become. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, but he wrote to himself as if he were a servant. Don't waste what's left of your life speculating about others. It's time to stop talking about what a good man is and be one. That's the energy. Because ego doesn't die in defeat. It dies in self-chosen obscurity. And in that obscurity, something powerful grows. Clarity, discipline, strength. When no one's watching, your work becomes pure. Your actions stop being performances and return to being decisions. Here's what you'll do. Each day during your ego fast, note the moments where the impulse to impress rises. Instead of acting on it, write it down, literally. I wanted to post this quote. I wanted to share this update. I wanted them to know I'm winning. You're not suppressing, you're observing. And through that observation, you begin to see the emotional chain, how much your sense of worth has been outsourced, how far you've drifted from inner alignment, how dependent your mind became on reactions. But something happens by day 3 or 4. You feel weight lift. You stop checking who saw what. You stop explaining yourself in your head. You return to the work, not to show them, but to become something. That's what ego-free action feels like. Solid, unshakable, quietly irreversible. Confidence built in silence survives criticism, because it never needed applause to begin with. You'll finish the week clearer, not louder. And you'll realize that the real you, the one that doesn't perform, doesn't polish, doesn't announce, is stronger than the one you've been curating online. The fast ends, but the clarity remains. You'll still share your journey. You'll still celebrate wins, but now you won't need to. And that's the difference between noise and strength. Take the fast, not to disappear, but to remember where your power really lives. Premeditatio malorum, visualizing the worst to strengthen the will. Delivered in calm, grounded language, 4,500 characters, pure Stoic depth, designed for mental conditioning, not drama, ready for narration. You avoid the thought of failure. You push away what could go wrong. You tell yourself it's better to stay positive, that imagining the worst is weakness. But that's the lie. The truth is this: when you refuse to look at the worst, it owns you. What you don't face controls you. What you don't prepare for breaks you. The Stoics didn't avoid catastrophe. They rehearsed it every day, not because they were pessimists, but because they were free men. And only a free man can look at disaster and say, I'm ready. The practice is called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. A daily exercise in imagining what could go wrong in vivid detail, not to scare you but to fortify you. Because when the mind is trained to look into darkness without flinching, it stops panicking when life dims the lights. Here's how it works. Each morning before the day begins, pause, close your eyes, ask, what could go wrong today? What plan might fail? What meeting might collapse? What person might disappoint? What weakness in me might resurface? Now don't run from the answers. See them clearly. Feel the tension. Let the image become real. The silence after rejection, the numbers failing to grow, the conversation that backfires. Then, calmly, design your counter-response. If it happens, I will respond with this. If I lose, I will stand with this. If they betray me, I will remain with this principle. You're not predicting disaster. You're building a mental defense. You're training yourself to be steady in the face of rupture, because once you've felt it in the mind, it lands softer in the body. Confidence isn't built on denial. It's built on exposure, controlled, calculated, consistent exposure to the very things you've been taught to avoid. Pain, rejection, change, uncertainty. You rehearse them so they don't surprise you. Seneca said, "He robs present ills of their power who has perceived their coming beforehand." That's it. When the blow lands, you've already seen it, already adjusted, already accepted it, and from that place you move anyway. But the practice doesn't end with imagining disaster. It ends with gratitude. After you run the mental drill, seal it with this sentence: even if all this happens, I'm still alive. I still breathe. I still hold my reason. And that is enough to begin again. This is the difference between fear and preparedness. Fear paralyzes because it arrives unexpected. Preparedness moves because it recognizes the terrain. You won't stop hard days from coming. You won't stop loss or failure or chaos. But you'll stop being undone by them, because you chose to look at them before they arrived. And in doing so, you turned fear into familiarity. Confidence grows not from wishing everything goes right. It grows from knowing that even if everything goes wrong, you will remain still, capable, ready. That's premeditatio malorum. Not dread, not fatalism, just the calm of a man who's already met his worst and walked through it in his mind, so when it comes, he nods and walks through it again. Premeditatio malorum. Visualizing the worst to strengthen the will. You avoid the thought of failure. You push away what could go wrong. You tell yourself it's better to stay positive. That imagining the worst is weakness. But that's the lie. The truth is this: when you refuse to look at the worst, it owns you. What you don't face controls you. What you don't prepare for breaks you. The Stoics didn't avoid catastrophe. They rehearsed it every day. Not because they were pessimists, but because they were free men. And only a free man can look at disaster and say, "I'm ready." The practice is called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. A daily exercise in imagining what could go wrong, in vivid detail, not to scare you but to fortify you. Because when the mind is trained to look into darkness without flinching, it stops panicking when life dims the lights. Here's how it works. Each morning before the day begins, pause, close your eyes. Ask, what could go wrong today? What plan might fail? What meeting might collapse? What person might disappoint? What weakness in me might resurface? Now don't run from the answers. See them clearly. Feel the tension. Let the image become real. The silence after rejection, the numbers failing to grow, the conversation that backfires. Then calmly design your counter-response. If it happens, I will respond with this. If I lose, I will stand with this. If they betray me, I will remain with this principle. You're not predicting disaster. You're building a mental defense. You're training yourself to be steady in the face of rupture. Because once you've felt it in the mind, it lands softer in the body. Confidence isn't built on denial, it's built on exposure. Controlled, calculated, consistent exposure to the very things you've been taught to avoid. Pain, rejection, change, uncertainty. You rehearse them so they don't surprise you. Seneca said, "He robs present ills of their power who has perceived their coming beforehand." That's it. When the blow lands, you've already seen it, already adjusted, already accepted it. And from that place you move anyway. But the practice doesn't end with imagining disaster. It ends with gratitude. After you run the mental drill, seal it with this sentence: even if all this happens, I'm still alive. I still breathe. I still hold my reason. And that is enough to begin again. This is the difference between fear and preparedness. Fear paralyzes because it arrives unexpected. Preparedness moves because it recognizes the terrain. You won't stop hard days from coming. You won't stop loss or failure or chaos, but you'll stop being undone by them because you chose to look at them before they arrived, and in doing so, you turned fear into familiarity. Confidence grows not from wishing everything goes right. It grows from knowing that even if everything goes wrong, you will remain still, capable, ready. If this helped you face what you've been avoiding, let it echo. Leave a comment sharing the moment you feared and how you'll face it differently now. And subscribe, not just to this channel, but to the practice of becoming unshakable, one principle at a time.